Ah, it's that time again. Right. Despite in the past, and I've even made a video about it, about how DPS does not equal TTK. Essentially meaning the more DPS you have doesn't necessarily mean you're going to kill things quicker. There are nuances to this. On the video that I did about this, I compared the FAMAS to the AKM. Shot for shot, the AKM hits harder. DPS wise, the FAMAS shoots faster. However, through comparing these, we were able to determine that assuming both weapons have 100% accuracy, the AKM will actually kill between 0.1 and 0.3 seconds faster, depending on your build, stacks you have, headshots, etc., faster than the FAMAS. However, the nuance with this is just quite simply that the FAMAS is just, in actuality, in game, in practice, a lot more accurate and stable than the AKM. So in what reality, when using in practice, would the AKM actually outperform a FAMAS? Well, if you're within 2 feet of the enemy, you'll notice a difference, but beyond that, FAMAS will typically kill things quicker. So despite the fact that yet again I have said DPS does not equal a faster time to kill, Strikers don't give no shits. Strikers, as it stands right now, is the DPS and low time to kill meta. It is silly. It is beyond powerful, absolutely outright stupid in its performance. The damage you're able to get out is mind-boggling. And it's, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but it's fun. Weapon go BRRRRRR. And if you're using FAMAS, you've basically turned yourself into a walking A10 warthog, which is bloody hilarious. So, because of how Strikers works, and I've been testing different stacking compositions, testing numbers of different stack variations, the overall performance of the stack gains and the DPS rates that each one is able to get. Essentially, I'm going 1 stack, what would my DPS be? 2 stack, what would my DPS be? 3 stacks, what would my DPS be? And I'm slowly going crazy with it. And what is to follow is going to be a series of spreadsheets, I'm afraid to say. Now, there are going to be a lot of numbers. For example, there's going to be many of these. I'm going to try and keep it simple and as unobstructive as possible. But the main thing I would like you guys to focus on are the percentages on the right hand side. The percentages are going to be a direct comparison in a percentage base of their DPS, and the number to the left of them is going to be their average DPS. Now, there are some problems with calculating DPS. One, it will assume that you are 100% accurate. 2, it will also mean that if I plug in a 50% critical hit chance, it will assume that exactly 50% of your bullets will crit, and vice versa. And this also goes the same with 60%. It will assume that 60% of your bullets will crit. So this is sort of best guess. There is no way to accurately determine critical hit chance and damage in a DPS form, simply because it's RNG. All we can really give you is best case scenario with a little bit of hope and luck thrown in. That being said, it is not uncommon for people to go to the range and get stupidly more damage. Another one to note as well is that the DPS that I am calculating works off of the body non-crit and the body crit. I am not going into the headshots because, well, that would be unfair. That means you're assuming that everyone is perfectly accurate and is able to hit headshots all the damn time. And unless you're people like Luna, Rez, Hutchler, Rise, and a few others, yeah, that's not happening. Anyway, first build is 4-piece strikers using a carbine 7. This is the build I'm running in the video, with a Grupo chest with Obliterate and a Coyote's mask versus pretty much the exact same build, but we're swapping out the Coyote's mask for a Seska. This is what those builds look like on paper. This is utilizing the Coyote short buff versus Grupo Cheska, and as you can see, we are doing quite a bit more damage. We have 162% critical hit damage, and despite the fact that we're only at a 50% crit chance and the Seska being at 60, we are able to completely outperform it. Well, what happens if we go to the medium buff? This is actually somewhat more of a fair fight, considering we have both 60% critical hit chance, but the Coyotes will just have 10% more critical hit damage, therefore meaning that over a period of time, utilizing the DPS, we are doing about 3.2% more in overall DPS. So yeah, although I'm going to try and refrain from saying things like bad or terrible, Coyote's mask will completely outperform a Cheska piece that you put on your striker's build. It is a viable option. It doesn't mean that you're flipping between long and short buff and trying to utilize the different buffs in different manners, as it is a lot more stable, but in the long run, no matter what, Coyotes will outperform the Seska. Something I should have mentioned at the start, really, I will be comparing all builds in this video to my main one, which you can see on screen now. It's also the build that I'm using in this video. So up next on the chopping block is 4-piece strikers using the chest and backpack, Fox's Prayer with a Seska mask. This will give us 54% critical hit chance and 122% critical hit damage. As you can see at the top end, we will be doing 12.92% more DPS. However, this does come with the cost of maintaining 200 stacks. At 147 stacks, you will be comparable to the build that I'm running in this video. Although this is an absolutely amazing viable choice and will give you some serious, and I do mean serious, damage, it would only really be beneficial for you to run this in a place like Legendary, where you are able to make use of those maximum stacks as well as maintain them. In open world and in missions, I honestly would not recommend running it this way, simply just because you will have an absolute ball ache trying to get as well as maintain those stacks. Yes, ACS 12 is an option, but you can't exactly go running balls deep into enemy groupings the whole damn time hoping to get stacks before you die. Next up we have this, using the Striker's Chest, a Seska backpack, which is your best option to get your critical hit chance up. With Vigilance. Vigilance is going to be temperamental just because of the way Strikers works. You will be taking damage, so this will not be up 100% of the time, unlike Obliterate. All you've got to do is shoot stuff. Along with the fact that using the chest will only give you a 0.88%. Using these setups, obviously, results will vary depending on different weapons and different talents and different structures in which you have your attributes, but this is the best I can come up with. Will only give you a 0.88%, not even a 1% increase, and you have to maintain 200 stacks. So for that extra 100 stacks, you will gain a 30% increase in damage, and you won't even get a 1% increase in DPS. Okay, if this doesn't affirm to you that the chest is 100% not worth it on its own, I don't know what will. Then we have Seska and Grupo with Spotter, still using Coyote's mask because this seems to be giving us the best performance. Seska first, we drop to 92.81% of the DPS that we have potentially already had, and with Grupo we drop to 52.88. Seska gets 54% critical hit chance and 122% critical hit damage, when Grupo gets 50 crit chance and 132. The issue here is we're essentially losing a mod slot, and we are not gaining that much back in the grand scheme of things. Where we are relying on Technician, we don't get our ammo consumption back. The reload although it is every third reload from gunner, is a huge increase in the DPS calculations as well. If we were able to go back to gunner and rely on just using the pulse skill, that would actually allow us, assuming we are shooting a pulse target, to get 1.2% more DPS over using Grupo Obliterate with Coyotes. The issue here is we are then relying on cooldowns. What happens if we get rushed and a skill's on cooldown? What happens if we get disrupted because Black Tusker dicks? There are too many other conditions. Although up front the initial shot on a pulse target and the build up will seem like it's doing more damage with spotter, the top end damage is considerably lower. Right, now it's time for the beast, and I've seen a lot of people claim, oh, I've made the strikers meta. It's kind of actually not changed. This is, weapon dependent. FAMAS with fast hands is the absolute best on this. But as you can see already, this is an 18.36% increase. The highest we got previously was a 12% increase using the chest, so that's 200 stacks. This is only 100 stacks and managing focus, and it will give you so much more damage. And we've not even equated in the headshot damage. With this, you will be going for a headshot type standard. So if I actually now do it again, but just do the same but with headshots, yeah, we're knocking on 50% increase in damage. I've also equated headshots into the other build as well, by the way, which is if you compare those two, you should see that the overall DPS has increased from like 8.5 mil to over 11 mil. Yeah, strikers with focus is still the meta with Fox's prayer. It is just the way to go, sadly. Annoyingly, if you're like me and you hate looking down that scope for prolonged periods of time, your next best option would be Grupo with Obliterate and a Coyote's Mask. This will give you the most stable output going. There are builds in which you can get slightly higher in your top end damage, but you're either going to be managing more stacks or you're going to be praying that you never get shot because of Vigilance, and there's varying other misnomers. In terms of overall stable output, your two best options that I have tested so far are Obliterate on Grupo, Chest, and Coyote's Mask, or Fox's Prayer with Pristine Example. Not to say the others aren't viable. Strikers in its current state is viable with literally everything. For a laugh, at one point I actually made a 511 build. I was using like chest guard, one piece 511 and then 4-piece strikers, and it worked perfectly fine. It is a very, very powerful set. It is not to dissuade anyone from running varying different things. This is kind of just to sort of show that strikers is just mostly about pure maximum DPS, and the easiest ways to get this are as shown. So in terms of maximum DPS, your winning builds are Pristine Example, Foxes, 4-piece strikers using the backpack. I would recommend for the weapon go with FAMAS with fast hands. That will be your best option. Or if you're not a 8x scope person, you are looking at a Grupo chest with Obliterate, Coyote's Mask. For this, when it comes to weapon talents, your best options are going to be Strained, Future Perfect, and Fast Hands. The only reason I would suggest Future Perfect is because with Future Perfect and the rate in which you're able to kill things, you are essentially able to have a 6 red build with a skill tier 3 ballistic shield. This will help you stay alive and also solves the utility issue when utilizing strikers because it has none. Anyway, that just about does it for this video. I hope this has been helpful. Again, not trying to say that varying different setups are good or bad. This is just hopefully to try and give you a little bit of insight. In the meantime, have fun, good luck, don't die. It's bad for the health.